Welcome to the Woman Every Day podcast, the show where we celebrate the stories of remarkable women who navigate the beautiful complexities of motherhood, ambition, and nuptials. I'm your host, Regina Joy Lane, and I'm thrilled to have you join us on this journey of inspiration and empowerment. Whether you're a mother, a career-driven woman, or someone navigating the intricacies of partnerships or marriage, this podcast is for you. Get ready to be inspired, uplifted, and empowered as we embark on this transformative journey together. Before we begin, I want to express my gratitude to our incredible listeners. Your support and engagement mean the world to us. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps us reach more people who can benefit from these inspiring conversations. Now, let's dive into today's episode of Woman Every Day. Stay tuned and get ready to be inspired. Welcome to the Woman Every Day podcast. I'm your host, Regina Joy, and our very first guest today is none other than Nikeya Young. And let me tell you a little bit about Nikeya. Let me pull up my notes here because I do not want to miss one detail because this woman is on the move. Let me tell you, Nikeya Young is a best-selling author, certified master life coach, TEDx speaker, get it, girl? Keynote speaker, workshop facilitator, licensed minister, podcast host, and entertainer. And I've had the opportunity to witness her in each of these seats. And what she didn't put down there is she's also a beauty queen, but we might jump into that at some point. Through her transformative coaching company and podcast, Victorious Living Solutions, Nikeya combines her gifts, talents, work experience, and certifications to empower leaders to crush their goals. Yes, despite life's challenges, and live victoriously. So, Nikeya, you are killing it. And one thing that you did not put in your bio is that you're my cousin.
Of course. How could I have
family?
Out? We are family. Hey.
All right. Clearly, we're related.
Clearly.
I just thought, who would be the best first guest for this podcast? And it was not even a thought. Like, I mean, it didn't take long for me to arrive at this decision. It was clear, like, Nikki's got to be you were already on my list, but it was like, duh, like, why would I do anybody else? Like, pay it forward to my family first. So I love you. I think you are just a woman on the move. You are doing all the things. Obviously, this show is about women who are juggling mothering, being ambitious women, on top of trying to juggle a relationship in there as well. And you have been married to your husband, Rodney, for, oh my gosh, I'm going to try to get this right. Is it 14 years?
Yes, it'll be 15 years next March. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. 14 years. You have 3 beautiful children, 2 twins and a young boy. And all of your kids are under the age of 7. Correct?
Yeah. My son is 7 and then the twin girls are 3.
Okay. So just jump in. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how motherhood has influenced your personal and professional journey.
Good child. Okay.
Good child. That's a heavy one, huh?
Because it's a lot. There's first, when people read my bio, my full length one, they kind of go, huh? Like, how are you doing all of this with 3 kids? And like, I mentioned during a workshop I was teaching earlier this week, I said, you can never compare your journey to someone else's because, first of all, most of the stuff y'all see in this long bio happened before I had kids.
Okay.
Now, not to say that since I have kids, I haven't been doing some things, because I did some pretty cool stuff since I've had kids also.
On the news.
I've written books. I've gotten certifications, became a fitness instructor, did a bunch of cool stuff, did TEDx. But in terms of the acting and the modeling and the beauty pageant thing that you mentioned and all that stuff and putting out my first album, like all of that stuff happened before. So I was definitely still doing things, but in a different way because I had more free time, obviously.
Right.
And so there's some of those passions that I've had to put down, not forever, but in this season, I have to pick and choose what to focus on. So that's one way that motherhood has influenced me. I'm also a homeschool mom. So yeah.
And you are teaching all of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. How are you doing that? How do you balance each of these roles? Because you're also married. And I realized that is a big part of who you are and how you live your life. You and Rodney are classic, beautiful, epitome couple. And I try not to put, you try not to put too many ideals on couples because I think you and I, we've lived enough life to know what you see is not always what's really going on, but like y'all are the real deal. And you do a lot to even guard your marriage, and we'll get into some of that. But tell me, how are you balancing? Like, what is a typical day for Nikeya Young? And I'm gonna try really hard not to call you Nikki Poo at any point during this interview.
Let me tell you something. Oh my God.
Sidebar.
Child, you get a nickname in our family, you will have to fight hard not to have that nickname end up on your obituary. That's how hard our nicknames stick. Like, it'd be to the point where people don't even know your real name. But anyway.
I know. I was talking about my niece and I was like, Tootie this, Tootie that. And somebody was like, who is Tootie? And I was like, what is her name? Oh, Carrie. Her name's Carrie. Yeah, we good. Black people, we good for nicknames.
Yeah. Let's see, a typical day for me. Well, I decide how much time I'm going to devote to business because I can't just be in my office all day working on things. Okay. So, I usually try to get up before the kids get up.
What time is that?
Well, my son has been going through a growth spurt. So he's actually been sleeping in a lot this summer and I've been letting him.
Yeah.
We're
gonna let you.
We're gonna let you get your rest. You do that. But he usually would get up at like 7 o'clock. One morning he woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I said, oh no, you need to go back to your room. And he was like, but I'm not sleeping. I said, you don't have to go to sleep. Why don't you just get some of your books off your bookshelf and just sit in bed and read them? And he was like, that's a good idea, mommy. I'm going to do that. And then he fell back asleep with the books in the bed. And I was like, thank you, Lord. Like, I need some coffee before I deal with you. And your shenanigans at 6 o'clock in the doggone morning. Oh, no, sir. But usually, usually me and Rodney will have our quiet time. We'll get up, we would like to get up around that time because if the house is quiet, there's no kids. If we have any deep work that needs to get done, or we just want some quiet time, or we just want to have our coffee or whatever, and kind of go over the day before, the kids wake up. Because once the kids wake up, the day is theirs, or at least the morning. And so we do that, eat. Usually by the time I'm done with eating, that's usually about the time Audrey wakes up and comes in like, oh, mommy, I'm hungry. And I can kind of time it so I already have his breakfast ready or in the process of making it. And sometimes I'll wait and I'll eat with him because he'll be like, I'm eating with no one, mommy. No one's eating breakfast with me. So sometimes that'll just be my time with him, alone time with mommy. The girls get up last. But that's because we put them all to bed at the same time, but let them twins go to sleep when they doggone feel like it. We'll be hearing them in there playing at like.
But you're going to bed.
Yeah, you're going to bed. And they're just like, that's fine. We're not going to sleep though. They be in the pen, just doing all kind of shenanigans. So by the time they get up, it's like 10 or like 9:30 or something before we start hearing them wake up and stuff. Because they haven't played half the night. Get them ready. And then we do our school lesson. Now, the child that gets up first, he usually gets his school lesson first, because after breakfast, then I can just get his books out, go over the lesson. And the beautiful part about him being older now is he can work independently. And so
you have do you plan the lesson for the week? Or are you doing like a month at a time or 2 weeks? Like, how are you mapping out the lessons?
You know what? Praise God for curriculum, because baby, that's what we do. Now, I know curriculum. Yeah, oh yes, honey. I know some homeschool moms are like, oh, it has to be child-led learning, and oh, girl, because it's all kinds of, it's like a bazillion and one homeschool methods out there. And, you know, my thing is whatever works for your family, do that. I don't like when certain homeschool influencers kind of try to shame people that use box curriculum or something. It's just like, so if you don't want to use box curriculum and it works better with you just letting the child lead what the subject is going to be, do that. But yeah, not work for me. So I do not do that. We use Life Pack curriculum for language arts. We use Singapore for math. We use Life Pack for science too. I do not do the box curriculum for history. I will be teaching history myself, and
so let's
sure history is taught correctly.
Let's unpack that, because I wonder how much of that. I mean, we're seeing a move, especially among Black families, that are moving to homeschooling in droves. A lot of it is because of the curriculum or lack thereof that is taught in public schools or just schools in general. So how much of that influenced your decision to homeschool?
Oh, now this is the thing. I was homeschooling anyway. I made the decision to homeschool when I left the classroom, because I used to be a public school teacher for about 5 or 6 years in Chicago public schools. I have a master's degree in special education. So I taught that. And just the different things that I saw in the school system, I said, you know, when I have kids, I'm going to homeschool them. That's what I'm going to do. It was traumatic, if I'm being honest, just being apart.
And you got out before COVID.
I did. I left in 2014.
Wow.
And I had my first kid in 2016. And people always ask me, how did you get your husband to agree to homeschooling? And they were like, what was that discussion like? And I was just like, I told him we was doing it. And then we did it.
So that's a good question. Let's shift into nuptials. Well, and maybe I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Are telling me about your day. I feel like the homeschooling thing is a whole nother podcast episode.
Girl, it is
of itself. And especially women in droves walking away from the profession of teaching.
Yeah.
A whole nother conversation as well. But you're telling me about your day.
Some more people.
You said what?
There should be a doggone panel discussion.
I mean, girl, I might listen. Panel discussion on. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So your day, you start with the kids. You start with you and Rodney first. Have your quiet time as a couple, breakfast, a little morning lights, and then it's wake the kids up, eat them, give them breakfast, and go into the homeschool lessons for the day. Now, does it take up all day?
It doesn't. No, like it, especially with little kids, like you can get homeschool can take like 2 hours or less for, like, I'm talking about all three of them together can be taught in 90 minutes. And that's the thing. Now, when they start getting bigger and their lessons start taking longer, it's still 3 or 4 hours. And that's not even like saying you have to sit in one spot for 3 or 4 hours.
Okay.
Like you can do part of it in the morning, let them have a break, do something else, in the afternoon, however you want to structure it. You don't
and
have
are you
school day.
Okay, so that's good to know. I mean, I had contemplated it at one point and decided against it, mainly because I knew I couldn't do it all the way through, like middle school and high school. But I hear that there are a lot of cohorts that come together so that the kids are socialized. I think sometimes that's been a big concern with homeschooling, making sure that the kids are socialized and know how to interact with other humans. So how does that work? Is that built into your day as well?
It is. And like, for example, Wednesdays, we're part of a homeschool co-op and we meet on Wednesday.
Co-op.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll meet from like 9-10 in the morning to like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's an all day thing. And we tend to do kind of, I want to say elective like subjects. We'll do some math, we'll do some reading, but the way it's done, it'll be like, for math, we did Dave Ramsey. They had a kid curriculum box that teaches kids how to budget and different things like that. So it's like math story problems, but real world problems. Like if you buy this, how much change do you have left? And there's like play money in there. So really interactive. So we do stuff like that. Or we'll do history, but we'll learn about, Black history figures, and we'll have books that we read together and talk about it. Or we'll go out in nature and we'll just like, we're going to meet at the forest preserve today. And we'll have our science kits and do like a nature scavenger hunt where they got to go find different kinds of plants or, see if you can find this kind of rock or, stuff like that.
Right.
And so it's summertime now. We're on summer break at the time of this taping, but we're about to get started back. School will be starting in September. Okay. But we still meet up, even though we don't have super structured lessons because the kids miss each other. They need to get together and play. So we'll just go to the park and just hang out. And then it's our time as adults to kind of sit while they're off on the jungle gym or whatever. We're sitting around and we're having our adult time. And that's good for me too. So it's good for them to socialize and it's good for me to get socialization because just being in the house with kids all day, like,
former stay-at-home mom. I get it. And so that brings up another question. You could have just been a stay-at-home mom, and take care of house and home, take care of the kids. But there's this thing that you've got going where I don't know if you're trying to conquer the world or what. Like you got this ambitious bone in you. Like where did this ambition come from and what is the driving force behind it? Like why not just stay at home?
Girl, I would be bored out of my skull. I think that to understand, I would literally be bored out of my skull. And then my kids would just be, I feel like when you have dreams inside of you that are not being attended to, for me, I have no poker face. Anybody who knows me knows that. I cannot be acting like everything is okay.
You don't have a poker face?
Girl.
I don't know what you're thinking by looking at you.
My face do whatever it wants. Excuse my vernacular, y'all. I'm sorry. My face does whatever it would like. So if I weren't fulfilling inner passions that I had, it would start coming out. I would be really grouchy, being short with my husband, being short with the kids. I would just not be happy. I'm happiest when I'm able to create and do things that I'm passionate about. Now, where that comes from, it's kind of a multi-layered onion.
Okay.
I think the best way for me to describe it is I'm the perfect composite of both my parents.
Okay.
So my mom was very she was just like Black Mary Poppins. Oh my God, she was so good with kids. She was just like all the things. And she was very meek, very sweet. She was like the neighborhood mom. All my friends would come over and be eating our food. Like she
and Kool-Aid.
And yes, like everything.
Best Kool-Aid ever.
Man, everything she made, it just tasted like it belonged in a
grilled
restaurant.
Cheese.
Yes, like how do you make epic grilled cheese with government cheese at that? And it's still
hey, Shondo.
Yeah, girl. Oh my God. You had me a flashback. I remember them grilled cheese sandwiches.
Listen.
My mom, she would just make the most out of whatever little she was given. It just became a lot when that's a whole other topic. So, but she was very family oriented. I think that when you're a kid, definitely when you're a woman, you're looking to your mom to see what you're gonna become, or what, you know what I mean? You look up to your mom. Your mom is your first real hero.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I saw the family part, but then I would just there was a part of me that was just kind of like, okay, and then is there something else in there? Oh,
that's it.
Okay. Yeah. So in me being a kid, I was a different kind of child. I always from like a small child, I would be writing songs, doing dance moves, doing Janet Jackson choreography in front of the TV. I was just always gonna be doing something. I don't know, but that was just always me.
Writing commercials.
Just, yeah. Everything that I actually do now in life, I would be acting out as a child.
Yes.
My dad has always been a workaholic. Always. I've never known my father to have less than 3 jobs. Never. He's always had at least 3. I think the most jobs he had at one time was like 5.
Yeah, that was the number in my head. 5.
Yeah. Police officer, working for the village, here in Chicago, like just always doing something, mover and a shaker. Anything he wanted, he went after it with reckless abandon. And so I think I got that part. I got a lot of that part. But my mom, she just wanted to be a wife and a mom. And if you understand where our parents grew up, they grew up in a very rural part of Arkansas.
Yeah.
And they didn't really have a lot,
And probably did not aspire to be. Yeah,
they didn't aspire to be a lot. It was like you aspired to be a wife and a mother. That's what you aspired to be.
And so much of that, I think, was generational too.
It was. Yeah.
I think our parents are boomers.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the first generation of women that the majority of them were working parents. We were the latchkey kids. Mm-hmm. I did not come home to my mother and snacks. I came home to, you better have that chicken thawed out before I get home. Or have the sides cooked, or we certainly had a key to get home. I had to walk home. Your situation was a little bit different. Tell us a little bit about your situation and how you feel like that impacted. Like, did you have feelings of, ooh, I don't want to be like my mom?
Like, it was very complicated. It was like I wanted to be just like my mom, and I also did not want to be like my mom.
Yes.
At the same doggone time. It was
How do we unpack that?
Ciao. We're going to try to unpack this whole eon the moment. So basically, my mom had a terminal illness, lupus. It was, no cure for autoimmune disorder. And so she was always on dialysis. She had to go like 3 or 4 days a week. She was always in and out of hospitals. And so because of her physical condition, she did not work a 9 to 5 job. It just would have just been too much to try to keep up with a work schedule and all of the medical treatments that she had to do. And also, my mom and my dad got divorced when I was very young. I was like 2 years old. And so we came to Tulsa. We were here in Chicago. Me and my mom came down to Tulsa and lived with family members until we were able to get an apartment. Of course, what kind of apartment are you going to get when you can't work? You're going to be on welfare and Social Security. And so you're going to have to get a government assistant housing. That's just how that works. So I feel like my mom put all of her eggs in the basket of, I want to be a wife and I want to be a mother. And when that marriage didn't work out, she just did not have anything to fall back on. Ooh. She did not have the college education. She just had a high school diploma. Her health had deteriorated, and now she's raising this child by herself. My dad would send her things and stuff, but that's not the same as like someone helping you to raise this child. You went half on this kid with me, and then you left me with. So it's, I didn't, even as a small kid, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to have this struggle bus life. I actually wanted to work really hard. And my dream was to get my mom out of the projects. Like, I'm going to become something great, and I'm going to have a big house, and then my mom's going to come live with me, and she's going to get to live in a nice neighborhood, and I'm going to get to do all of this stuff for my mom. So that was essentially where that driven instinct came in.
Yeah.
That was initially.
Yeah, that's key. I mean, you're preaching right there. I've dealt with the same thing. So but in my story, so my mother worked, and I lived with both parents. They both worked. Mm-hmm. But I missed my mother. Like, you got to go home to your mom. Yeah. Everybody wanted to be at your house because, first of all, AT was just so much fun. Like, you were right. Black Mary Poppins, that's perfect. I don't know why I haven't thought about that or heard that before, because it's so accurate. And so I would come home and my mom is working. Sometimes, especially during the holidays, she would work a second job. Mm-hmm. Just to, get make Christmas special or whatnot. So when I finally became a mother, I wanted to stay at home with my kids.
Yeah.
And mm-hmm. then I ended up in a situation where I was looking at a divorce.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy moly, I don't have a resume to back it up. I've been at home all the time. Like, no one cares that you've been like raising your kids for the last 10 years. They want to know, where's your experience? Where's your work experience? And I didn't have that. And I said, I gave up more than I thought by staying home. And yet it was also a privilege to stay at home, because I realized so many families, if they could do it, they would.
Yeah.
And not to say that every woman, every couple is going to get a divorce, but I try to teach my girls that, like, if you want to stay at home, like, you can stay at home. That is an honor and a privilege to be able to be at home with your kids during these, pivotal, formative years. However, stay plugged in with a career or volunteering with something that matters and fills your tank as well.
Absolutely. And
I pay for that in counseling, just by the way.
Yes.
I don't know the exact dollar amount, but like, that came through counseling.
Yeah. I mean, that's real. I definitely have married those two schools of thought. Because my mom was at home. I came home, dinner was already ready. Like, she was very much homemaker. And people were just like, you're so lucky your mom spends so much time with you. And You know, our moms are always gone, you know, it's things like my friends would tell me. So I got that part. My kids have a stay-at-home mom, but I'm not just a typical stay-at-home mom. I'm also a work-at-home mom. I basically call myself a slay-at-home mom.
Okay, slay-at-home mom.
Yeah, I
You've
think
heard
that,
it here first.
yeah, I'm a
Slay-at-home mom.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's good because my kids get to see me pursuing my passions. We've got like my podcast studio set up in the basement. They'll hear me when we were doing music. We haven't done music in a while, but we used to record music, background vocals. My husband's also a music producer. Right now, he's not doing so much music production anymore, but he's the band director at our church. Like, he does music. So our kids get to see us operate in our gifts and talents, but they also know that we have to work, and they're getting the best of both worlds. So they're getting to see me teaching them their school lessons, fixing them their food, but they also know mama gotta have a life too.
Yeah. So, and it sounds like you're carving out time for yourself. Yeah. And, you know, and I would imagine as your kids get older, they will learn to respect this time and space.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've seen it growing up. Okay, so you mentioned Rodney.
Yes.
Let's talk about, because like you said, you've been this ambitious woman even before. You had dreams and goals before kids, before Rodney. So talk to me about this man, honey, that you decided you wanted to marry and spend the rest of your life with. I have nothing but grand things to say about the one that you have chosen. But please, for our audience, tell everyone about Rodney. Just give us a little background on your love story, and then we'll talk about how being married has possibly changed or shifted your ambitions.
Yeah. Okay. So Rodney Price Young Jr.
Come on now.
This man.
You gotta take a pause on that one.
Yes, he's amazing. He's amazing. We met in college. We met we went to DePaul University. We were in gospel choir together. He was the choir accompanist, and I was lead soloist. So
picking from the flock.
Yeah. It started that way. And actually, when I first met Rodney, I had just come out of a really bad breakup. I was just one of those naive people that just thought, I'm going to meet the person that God has for me in high school, and we're going to be high school sweethearts, and we're going to get married. We're going to live happily ever after. And that was my plan, honey.
Yes.
Because that's what we Southern girls do. Now, that is not a Chicago thing at all. Like, when I tell people this story in Chicago, they be looking like, girl, what? We don't do that here. But that's a very much Southern thing to do.
Yeah.
And I definitely have classmates that are still married to the person.
They call it getting an MRS degree in college. Yes. Like ring by spring. Ring by spring.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Who am I? I was married in college, so let me stop.
I was a late bloomer. So when I met Rodney, we were friends first. We did attempt to date. We dated for about a short 2 months. And then I was just like, you know what? I'm really still damaged from this other relationship. It's too soon for me to hop into something new. And I just feel like God wants me to be by myself so he can do some things with me. And so I broke it off. And it was really hard because he was like really nice. He was a nice guy. But I just knew I wasn't ready to be in a relationship. And honestly, he had just gone through a bad breakup with his high school sweetheart before the start of college too. So it was just like, okay, this will be good for both of us to just kind of figure ourselves out. And we did that. We were still friends. We were still, we worked well together in choir. We had the same mutual friends. And that was just kind of it. for the rest of college. I graduated in 2003. He was a business administration major, and so he took an extra semester to graduate. So he graduated in like 2004. We didn't really see each other after graduation. I was going to a different church at the time, and so was he. But in 2004, the late summer of 2004, God had directed me to leave the church that I was at and join this new church.
Hey.
And it was a really big church, Dr. Bill Winston's church here in yeah. So I'll go there. The church is like 20,000 people in this church. Y'all know who the very first person that I saw was when I got to the church? Rodney. And I was like, that guy looks like Rodney, but he has dreadlocks. Rodney doesn't have dread, right? He has these little, dreadlocks. They weren't long there. You know, when you first start growing your locks and they're like short. So I was coming into the 11 o'clock service and he was coming out of the 9 o'clock service, and he was just kind of talking on his phone to somebody. And I was coming up the parking lot and I'm like, oh, and I kind of waited for him to end his phone call. And I'm like, Rodney, hey. He's like, oh my gosh, what are you doing here? And I was like, I'm actually joining here now. He was like, really? I was like, what are you doing here? Don't you go to such and such? Oh, no, I don't go here anymore. I go here. I joined last year. I was like, oh my gosh, cool. So then we were just kind of chit-chatting. He's telling me other people we went to school with that also go there. And I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I'll see them around. You know, it's good seeing you or whatever. And then I go in and I sit down, and the church was so big, we didn't see each other anymore until the spring of 2005.
Wow.
Because we joined an intercessory prayer training class. There were different requirements before you got into any ministries. You had to have your foundations classes. Certain ministries, you had to have intercessory prayer training classes. So we both wanted to be a part of ministries, and we just happened to be in the same intercessory prayer training class. Long story short, it was a 10-week training. We always sat together because we knew each other. When we came to registration, I was like, oh, there's Rodney. Oh, hey. And we saw a friend's mother, you know, a friend from gospel choir. Her mother was in the class. So the three of us were like, oh, hey. And since we only knew each other, we didn't know any of the other people. We just naturally, the three of us sat together every week. The last day of prayer training class, it was about listening to the voice of the Holy Spirit. Mm-hmm. And they said, you're going to turn to your neighbor, you're going to grab their hands, and you're going to pray in the Spirit. And then we're just going to be quiet and we're going to listen and just listen to what God tells you. And so I was like, okay. So I turned to grab my friend's mom's hand, but she's already grabbed the neighbor, you know, next to her. And then Rodney tries to grab that person, but they've already, and we're just like, okay, you know, so we grab each other's hands and we pray for each other. And then we're just quiet and we're listening, you know. And me being me, it's really hard for me to just shut my brain off and listen. But I'm like, okay, God, what you going to tell me? And when I say, I heard an almost audible voice say, you are holding your husband's hand, it freaked me out so bad because we weren't dating. We weren't talking. We hadn't seen each other in months because the church is so big. I didn't come here looking for a husband. I came here for intercessory prayer training.
Intercessory prayer training. That's what they call it now. Oh, that's what it was called back then. Now it's called Hinge.
Child, I opened my eyes and was like, it sounded almost audible. I thought it was the devil. I'm like, now see, the devil is trying to distract me because I didn't come here trying to look for no man. I'm trying to hear Jesus. And there was that. I think that was the devil that said that. Like, God will get you. What? And so, you know, I didn't see anybody say anything to me. So I'm just like, okay, I don't know if that was the Lord or not. Let me pray and see if I hear something else. But I didn't hear anything else. And I was just it was the most
awkward story. So this is really
it was the most awkward prayer ever. Cause then it was like, okay, now it's time to share out. You know, anybody have anything? Like, what did God tell you? And I was just like,
I wonder if he felt that too. Have y'all talked about, did he feel that too?
Yes, I was like, I am not telling her. I'm not going to be one of those crazy women. The Lord told me. that you was my husband. I'm like,
No, we've had our experiences.
Child.
Oklahoma.
Child. I was like, I'm not gonna be one of them women. And people think I'm up here prophesying. Like, Lord, if this was you, you gonna have to tell him too, because I ain't saying nothing. My mama told me, don't chase no man, let him come to you. I ain't.
That part.
That was like the spring of 2005. In 2006, the whole year later, and I took this man a whole year after that to ask me out.
On a date?
Yeah, it took me it was a whole year later. But we still hung out. We had mutual friends. There's this Chicago restaurant called Portillo's, and there was a Portillo's in the same mall area by our church. That was like our ritual. We always went to Portillo's and ate burgers after church or just hung out. And so that gave us time to get to know each other better. Our friends were just kind of like over us because I'm like, when are these idiots going to figure out they like each other kind of a thing? But I was like, I think he likes me, but I don't know. And I'm not going to say nothing because I'm not saying nothing. I ain't chasing on man. He better come tell me if he like me or we just ain't going to be talking. Period.
Something how we can be so ambitious, but like when it comes to like relationship, no, you could come to me.
Girl.
Come chase me.
Girl. That's just, I'm so old school.
Me.
I'm so old
school. That is very old school, very Southern. Definitely.
The new girls, they would just tell you, I'm old school to the heart. Like, no, baby.
Yes, I can be very old school as well in that regard. So,
yeah. So that's basically, he came a year later and asked me. It was, I was teaching at a school. And he asked me, he was like, it's really nice to get out today. Would you mind getting together after you get off work and going out for ice cream? And I was like, sure. It's hot outside. I'm like, oh, cool. So we go out for ice cream and he is kind of acting weird. He's acting kind of nervous. And I'm like, is he okay? And then we sit down at the table and he hands me an apple for the teacher. So he hands me an apple and then he like hands me this note. And I'm like, what's this? So I open the note and it says, Nikeya, I really, really, really like you. Do you like me? Check yes or no.
Not this college educated man.
He did.
It's the note passing.
He did.
Yes or no. That's right, baby.
Oh my God. I was just like cackling. I'm like, oh, it's so cute. And I was just like, I like checked in and I like passed it to him and he was like, yes. Okay. He's like, okay, I have another question. So, so he talks to me and he says to me, I have a question and you don't have to answer me right away because you may need some time to think about this. But I really have been praying about you and talking to the Lord about you. And I've talked to your dad about you. I was like, oh. Anybody who's met my dad knows that is no small feat. Yeah.
Witness. And tall. How tall?
My dad is 6'2.5". He is
always seems so much taller than me.
Yeah,
But I'm short. I get it.
Yeah. My dad, he don't play. He don't play at all. And he's just like, I really feel that you're the person that God has called me to be with. And so I want you to understand what I'm asking you. I'm not asking you to date because you're not the kind of woman that one casually dates. I'm asking you if you'd be interested in entering into courtship with the end goal of this relationship being the altar and living the rest of our lives together. And so pray about that and get back to me. Let me know. And I was just sitting there in this ice cream restaurant like, wow.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay. Let me ask you a question first. When did you first know that I was the person you're supposed to be with? Like, I'm curious. When did God first start speaking to you? And he goes, okay, this is going to sound really crazy, but remember the last day of intercessory prayer track, praying cast, we were like praying together. And I was just like,
I'm done. I'm done. It's
done.
over.
It's over.
It's
Let's plan our wedding. When you want to get married is next Friday.
Tomorrow.
Like, I'm done. That was like all the confirmation I needed. Like, yeah. So that's how we got together.
So, okay. So I'm gonna bring something up because you've talked about your faith a lot, and it's been it's made a clear path for you guys. Your faith, it helps direct you on your path. It helped you find each other. It's informed how you parent, and even in a lot of the work that you do. So typically, a lot of times when you see this kind of structure, especially in a Christian family, where you have, a mother that's homeschooling, and living kind of that old school life, right? Very traditional. You tend to see women who, not to say that they are not ambitious at all, but they tend to really just stay at home. They don't work. They are dedicated to their husband and their children. And we're starting to definitely see some break from that. But I mean, how did that work with Rodney? Did he have an expectation of you to stay at home and rear the kids? Was he okay with you being ambitious? Now, part of me knows the answer to this question, but I would love for you to share more about that journey with, like, I still got dreams and goals.
Yeah.
Love Jesus. I definitely want to start a family with you. But I still have some dreams and goals as well. The things that I feel like the Lord is calling me to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So when me and Rodney got together, so we officially entered into courtship on March 10th, 2006. We got engaged on March 10th, 2008. We got married on March 14th, 2009. So that was the timeline of that. So over the course of those 2 to 3 years leading up to the wedding, and even when we were just friends and just hanging out, he always saw me pursuing my dreams. And that was a lot of what attracted him to me in the first place. So he was not interested in kind of yanking me off the market and then just having me sit home and not do anything. He was very much wanting to see how he could come alongside me and help champion the things that I was doing. And he did that. This week is the anniversary of, I don't know if you've talked to Monique Brunner, but this is the anniversary week, or kind of pageant week. It's Miss Plus America pageant week is happening right now in Houston, Texas. And so I'm seeing people posting all their pageant stuff, and it's taking me back because I first joined the Miss Plus America pageant system in 2008. So it was right in the midst of us in this courtship engagement phase. And Rodney was a pageant man. He's like, this is what my girl is interested in. This is what I'm interested in too.
Carrying all the things.
Carrying all the luggage, shuffling me to pageants, like whatever I was interested in, he was interested in. I wanted to do music. He had his own recording studio in downtown Chicago. I would go in his studio and record music, work on projects with him, do background vocals. So he was always very much.
And he's produced all of your albums, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, I've had singles and then one album, but he produced all. Yeah.
Okay.
And that was another confirmation from the Lord too, just how we worked together, because I would hear whole melodies in my head, but I don't know how to play any instruments. And then I would like sing it for him, and he would play it because he knows how to play by ear. He would play exactly how it sounded in my head, and I would be like, awesome. Yes, perfect. So that was just really great, us working together that way. But he was always very supportive, and he always, if I wasn't creating, he would just be like, you haven't done anything. What's up? Is everything okay? Like, I know you're happiest when you're creating. So he's not going to ever let me sit back and not pursue the things that God has given me. Like, he knows God called me to these things, number one. And two, that's just the kind of person he is. That was very important for me to be married to someone like that.
Yeah.
If I couldn't be married to someone like that, then I probably would just be still single. And I would rather be single than to be married to the wrong man who's acting all insecure and trying to get me to be half of myself to make himself feel taller. Like, we ain't doing it over here.
That's good. I love that. I love that. And you've done a really good job of marrying the three, and it seems like a delicate balance. So I want to wrap up here with some sage advice. Can you share a valuable lesson or insight that you gained through being a mother, an ambitious woman, and also a wife?
I can share a lot of things. I'll say this to the people I'm going to start with the people who are watching this and they're like really early on in dating, or they're just kind of trying to figure it out there, or they're just getting married. Have some things for yourself. Have some things for yourself. It's just like they tell us when we get on an airplane, you've got to put your own oxygen mask on first. And then from there, you are able to do all of the other things for all of the other people you have to serve so much better. You can't serve from an empty cup. So make sure that you are, filling your cup first. And I say, for me, because as a woman of faith, I allow God to fill my cup first. There's different self-care things that I do, but I'm also connected to him and what he's got for me and filling my cup. And then that helps me to be able to serve my husband well. That helps me to be able to serve my children well. You teach people every single day. You are teaching people how to treat you. And so when you don't put yourself on the list, then you're teaching people that your needs don't matter and they will treat you accordingly. And you can't even resent them for it because that's how you taught them to treat you.
Yeah. Come on, preach. That's a sermon in and of itself.
Yes.
And just for all of our listeners, I want to make it clear, neither one of us are bashing or in any way disparaging women who decide to stay at home, or any parent for that matter who decide to stay at home. It is a hard job to be a stay-at-home parent. I did it for 7 years, and it's also an honorable place, and in America, it's almost a sign of privilege as well. If you can afford for one parent to go to work while another one stays at home, I mean, wow, what an honor, what a privilege, and what great work. This particular podcast is focused on these women who are juggling it all. Working, whether from home, like our guest Nikeya Young, or if you're working outside of the home, in an office, if you're in a leadership position or entry level. I mean, it's a different juggle. And so we want to highlight these women. We want to hear about how they're doing it, how they're failing, how you got back up, because Lord knows, I think every woman has dealt with some level of guilt when it comes to parenting and trying to work and do all the things and take care of your spouse. Like, it can be so much. So this podcast is meant to uplift, encourage those women who are trying to juggle mothering, ambition, and nuptials. So excited we can have Nikeya Young.
Thank you for having
the Renaissance woman on our podcast as our very first guest. Thank you so much for just being so open and honest, sharing your experiences, what it's like being a mom, and in particular, a mom that homeschools. I think this will be really good for our listeners. And then all of the different things that you're doing to live out your dreams and ambitious goals, and how you are still able to show up as the wife of your husband, and really make your marriage work. You guys are going on, you said you were married in 2009?
Going on 15.
Yeah, we said 14 years. So bless you guys. Bless you. Thank you so much for being our guest today. And that's all we have. Thank you so much. And that brings us to the end of another insightful episode of the Woman Everyday podcast. I hope you found today's conversation inspiring and empowering. Remember, you are not alone in this journey. Together, we can embrace the joys, overcome the challenges, and create a life that embraces both our aspirations and our roles as mothers and partners. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends, family, and anyone you believe would benefit from these stories. And don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Ever forward, Regina Joy.